Good morning. Our dough, our no-knead sourdough bread has risen overnight. So I'll take out my little shower cap, give you an idea of how nice and big and fluffy that is. Big fluffy dough. So I'm going to take a little bit. This is part 2 here. We've let this rise overnight. Spent about 5 minutes on this last night. Went to bed. Got up today after letting this sit out overnight covered. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of flour on this just so that I'm not going to have my hand stuck in it when I work on it. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of flour onto my surface. And then I'm going to kind of flour my hands so nothing's stuck all over me. And I'm going to use my little dough scraper here. And I'm going to scrape out. I'm basically loosening the dough. You can see this, basically loosening the dough as I go around so that I can scrape it out. I don't want it all stuck, and I'm trying to get it from being all stretchy, weird looking when I take it out. And I'm going to dump it over onto its head, basically here. So I can turn it over upside down here, so you can see I've got everything out of the bowl. And hopefully you can see this. There we go. So what I want to do is not get any flour on the top part, because if I flour the top part, it won't stick to itself anymore. So I'm just going to, it's kind of big and loose and shaggy, so I'm going to just take my little scraper and I'm going to start turning it up on itself. So if you can see this, I'm just turning it up on itself. Almost like pleating it around the corners. Pleating it. You can do this with your hands if you want. You just might get sticky. So I'm going to start off doing it like this. I may throw a little bit more dough, more flour underneath it, so it's not sticking. I'm going to pleat it over on itself. You can also do this with your hands. I'll show you here. Your hands. As I'm doing this, I am stretching the underside part, which is really the top. I'm stretching that underside part up. I'm making it tighter. I'm making it smoother. So you can see, I lift it up, it's getting tighter. So what I want to do is get a nice round ball here. So I'm just going to keep turning and pleating, turning and pleating. I'm not kneading it, I'm just pleating it over on itself. By the way, in last night's video, when we added the starter and the water and the salt and flour together, it would have been easier to mix if I had mixed my starter and my water together so that the starter was dissolved more into the water. It would have made it a little thinner and would have been easier to stir. So keep that in mind when you do yours. Since I don't usually do it videotaping, I got myself out of order there. All right, so I'm just, like I said, I'm just pulling this over, making it tighter. Tight, 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 tight. I'm pulling it in, pulling it in, pulling it in. So I'm going to flip it over so you can see it now. So you can see it's now a tight ball. You see that? And I can continue. I'm not smashing it. I'm pulling under. The motion is actually like this. I'm pulling under as I turn it. So I'm continuing to tighten that top. Give it some tension on the top. It'll give it a nice crust. It'll give us a nice round top. Excuse me. And it'll give it that tension so that it balloons out of the top there after you cut it with your lum. I have no voice today. Sorry, guys. All right, so I'm going to take all of this now that I've done this, and I'm going to put it on. I'm not sure if I can do this without giving you guys a headache here. I'm going to move it to turn it one more time. I'm going to move it to my piece of parchment here that I've already cut a piece of parchment, and I have a little bit of flour on it. I'm going to flour the top a little bit here just so it's got a nice smooth floured top. Tuck it under a little bit, and then I'm going to cover it. Didn't think to get this out earlier. Cover it with a tea towel. I usually use a white gauze towel, but this is handy. A white tea towel, and just let it sit while I'm preheating my oven. As soon as I came down and started to work with this, I went ahead and preheated my oven to 475. I put my Dutch oven in there at the same time so that the Dutch oven is heating at the same time that the oven is heating up. If I didn't have a Dutch oven, I could do this on a cookie sheet with a pan turned over it. I could do it on a pizza stone. If I were doing it on a cookie sheet, I probably wouldn't need to preheat it till the very end. If I were using a pizza stone, I would go ahead and put it in at the beginning as well. I've actually done it without covering the dough with anything in the oven, and just spritzed it with water. The key is you want to build up steam to give you that crunchy, crusty outside while you still have a tender inside. So the steam that's created by either spritzing it with water, you could put a metal pan, never use a glass pan, a metal pan of ice cubes in the bottom of your oven when you put the bread in, and that way the ice cubes melt and evaporate and create steam for you. But we're gonna let this sit for about 30 minutes to an hour while the oven preheats, and we'll come back.